time of musical worship into our time of devotion, and then also that great challenging word from Reverend Alexander. And hopefully you began to process it at your tables, and we'll have some time to continue to let those good words sink in. Those in the hallway, we invite you to come on in.
I heard you call.
Thanks for coming. And so we've invited 4 of our grantees, the leaders of their projects, to share some responses to Reverend Alexander's address this morning that she titled it, A Call to Action in an Unsafe World. But even within that framing, there was a lot of different thoughts, different ways to go into that word. So we have 4 panelists here who themselves have been leading projects funded through this cycle's Palmer Grant, and they each will give a brief response to this morning plenary's address, coming from the sub-theme which their project is connected to or under, and they'll feel free to also share a little bit more about their project. You will see their names and the sub-themes listed in your program for this session, and later on in the program booklet you can read their full bios. But I will do a brief introduction and just some highlights of who they are. First, we have the Reverend Dr. Martin Song, first one here to my left. He is representing the Massachusetts Baptist Multicultural Ministries, MBMM, which we love to say around these halls. And this is a nonprofit organization supporting immigrants and refugees in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts. In addition to directly serving thousands of new Americans each year, helping them navigate their path to self-sufficiency, inclusion, and active citizenship, MBMM also supports and equips pastors and church leaders who are welcoming the stranger and weaving God's love across all cultural divides. And his sub-theme is immigration, migration, and displacement, and their project is called Refugee School Impact. Next to him, we have Josue Gomez Menendez, PhD and JD, and he is here as the Administrative Director of the Puerto Nuevo Baptist Academy, a college preparatory school in the San Juan area with 1,000 students serving since 1956. He is a member of the Puerto Rico Bar and has generously offered his professional expertise in various spaces, including our denomination, in which he is no stranger. He has served in various denominational leadership roles and has the distinct honor of being the first and only, so far, nominated ABC USA officer from Iglesias Bautistas de Puerto Rico region, including being the office of the president of our denomination. And he will be speaking through the lens of Justice for God's Planet, and their project is called Earth Guardians, Justice, Mercy, and Humility in Environmental Stewardship. And next to Josue, we have the Reverend Dr. Victoria Carr-Ware, and she is joining us today in her role as one of the 5 recently selected and anointed leadership team members of the American Baptist National Black Caucus. Reverend Carr-Ware also serves as senior pastor of Queen Anne Baptist Church in Seattle, Washington. And through her preaching, counseling, and education ministries, her commitment to radical solidarity and belonging, developing emerging leaders, cultivating liberation and social justice, and improving quality of life for all, especially those who have often been deemed the least of these, shines through. And her sub-theme that she will speak through is engaging the public square, and the Black Caucus project is called Facing Forward. And then lastly, certainly not least, is the Reverend Trevor A. Hyde Jr., and joins us today as the pastor of the historic Berean Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. Let's hear it from New Yorkers. Where Dr. Arlie Griffin Jr. is the senior pastor. As the senior church administrator, Reverend Hyde strategically plans and executes a path to successful ministry, permeating all areas of expressions of gospel work, both within the church, edifying the saints in all areas of discipleship, as well as into the community engagement through the church's various subsidiaries, such as the Credit Union, Community and Family Life Center, Senior Housing and Housing Development Fund Corporation. Reverend Hyde is also serving as Vice President of the Board of Trustees of this fine institution, the American Baptist Home Mission Societies. So we are also blessed to have his leadership impacting our mission. And he will be speaking through the lens of the theme Family, Health, and Wellness. And their project is called Freedom From, Freedom To. Let's give a hand to our panelists. And I'll invite them just to go one by one in this order, and if there's time, we can do some engagement, but wanted them to fully respond to this morning's address, and also that we can learn more about their work.
Good morning, and thank you, Reverend Dr. Marie, and the whole team, the leadership of the American Baptist Home Mission Society. Reverend Andrea and also Dr. Jeff has mentioned about how important it is to do the cohort and networking in a time such as this. And that's what we try to do in the time when it's rapidly changing. But one thing that I really find so appreciative of the Home Mission Society is that Home Mission Society really come down to the grassroots level and to the partnership. You know, when we are talking about partnership and cohort, sometimes even our work in a nonprofit work can be very territorial. But I'm so glad to have a partner walking alongside with a grassroots organization like us. So without any further ado, Ratan asked me to make some presentations. I was thinking that I'm going to be talking about refugee school impact. I will address to some extent that I did have a topic, so I had to scribble down some topic. So anyway, here it is. And this is an elephant in the room. With the stroke of a pen on January 20th, from the Oval Office, millions of new Americans, men, women, and children have been branded troublemakers, criminals, and threats to our nations. With the single signatures, families have been separated, mothers detained, fathers deported, children left weeping in cages without due process, without any empathy, and without any hope. And with another stroke of a pen, thousands and thousands of refugee families who have been waiting for many years in the plastic camps, refugee camps, families who have completed their interview process, undergone security checks, received approval, and even have booked airplane tickets, were all stopped overnight. Now they wait again, this time not knowing whether they will ever be reunited with their loved ones. And actually much closer to the home where we work in Massachusetts. To comply with the Federal Register, Massachusetts, which is one of the most progressive states, also has to pass a law called Right to Shelter Act, requiring legal immigration status for people to receive shelter and housing. But as I said, just with the stroke of a pen, all those legal people who had Social Security, work authorization, and contributing to our life was all become illegal. So on a cold January day, in the ACE Center, which we call is Advocates Celebrating Empower, we gathered there. Host of volunteers showed up, but not even a single New Americans came to our program. Not even the children or adults who have been doing adult education in ESO. So when we are talking about this, I'm not talking about an abstract policy. It is the lived reality of the people that we serve and we encounter every day. And we all have talked about quitting sometimes. And I remember having some phone conversation with Marie from time to time about she's kind of my sounding board about some of the frustration that we face as we navigate through this very complex problem. So without any further ado, I would like to give a real story, and some of these stories some of you might have heard about. It is about a church in Massachusetts, but I've changed the name of the church and pastor's name for confidentiality and also for us to go through a little more better without me twisting the my tongue. Let me tell you about the First Hope Church, a congregation in the heart of a vibrant, multi-ethnic neighborhood in Massachusetts. For years, it has been a spiritual home for people across the world. Refugee, asylum seekers, international students, and families who found belonging in a new world. But in the past year, fear has emptied its pews. Some longtime members have left the country, not because they wanted to, but because they were terrified of detention and deportation. Others stopped attending altogether, afraid that even stepping into the church might bring surveillance or arrest. Then came the news that a nearby church had experienced ICE arrest outside its sanctuary doors. The message spread quickly. No space is truly safe. Pastor Roberto, himself an immigrant with heavy hearts, faced some different opinions within the church. Some elders urged silence. Let the church be a place of prayer, not protest. Other younger generation insist silence is complicity. The gospel demands we speak. And I think for the Baptists, the two roles the pastors play, the priestly function and the prophetic function of a pastor. So Pastor Roberto and I and the host of pastoral cohort that we work with, we came together for prayer, for wisdom, and guidance. And after several meetings, Pastor Roberto realized that as a priest, he must comfort his people who live in fear. But as a prophet, he must also speak truth to power and confront systems that deny justice and due process here in this country. Every Sunday, as he looks out at his shrinking congregation, he feels both the pain and purpose of his calling. To remain silent in the face of injustice is to deny gospel we preach. That does not mean that there is no rest in prophetic voice. Yes, there is rest in prophetic voice, legal, financial, even personal. But the greater danger, Pastor Roberto understood, is that is moral silence, the slow erosion of conscience when comfort overweighs conviction. So what we can do? So actually, when we face all this kind of stuff, we already again reach out to Rotang and also Home Mission Society and see here, what can we do? Because not just helping these children with the all-round development is not working because children are afraid to come. We have to provide transportation. All those people, those who have been living in the shelter, a block away from our building, have moved out because of the new law that passed. But Rotang and the Home Mission Society came forward and said, here, whatever you are thinking of doing some immigration legal clinic, we will provide some emergency grant. So with that, we could started fighting back and forth with one of our immigration attorney. Asylum application, because even though they are TPS, they are rescinded. So what I'm saying is that we need to create sanctuaries that are truly safe and courageous, offer know your rights workshop, host legal clinics, support family facing detention. I know it needs resources, but I've been networking with a lot of partner organizations and other small nonprofits. I think it's very helpful. build solidarity with other churches, state groups to advocate for human policies, use our pulpits to proclaim that love neighbors close to the border. So Pastor Roberto told me one thing, and this is a word from his mouth. The gospel is not about closing gates. It is about opening doors. Courage is not absence of fear. It is a decision of something else more important, depending fully on God, who is love. So I borrowed a Message Bible paraphrase of John 1:14. In the Bible, it says, the word became flesh, Message Bible says, and moved in to the neighborhood. So actually the word becomes flesh and moved into the immigrants' neighborhood.
Yeah.
Therefore, if I'm to encounter that Jesus, I try to show up there in that very place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Andrea, for your presentation. And as I reflect through the lens of our team, Justice for God Planet, I hear a strong reminder of the responsibility we are shared to care for creation. Justice for God's planet is more than protecting the environment. It is about restoring the balance that God intended between people, the earth, and all living things. And today I want to talk about our responsibility that is both urgent and sacred. When we hear the word justice, we usually think about fairness between people. We think about laws, rights, equality. But justice is bigger than that. Justice extends beyond humanity. It reaches every part of creation. God entrusted the earth to us as stewards, not as owners. Justice for God's planet means protecting it, restoring and honoring it. We live in a time when the sign of environmental injustice as impossible to ignore, as well as other things that happens today. Forests are disappearing at alarming rates. Oceans are filling with plastic. Countless species face extinction. There are no just environmental problems. There are water problems. When we pollute rivers, overuse resources, or destroy habitats, we are violating the justice God intended for His creation. And who suffer the most? The most vulnerable, poor communities, marginalized populations, and future generations who will inherit the earth we leave behind. Justice for God's plans call us to see the creation as sacred. Every tree, every river, every creature has value because it's part of God's designs. To care for the planet is to respect God's handiwork. It is not enough to enjoy natural beauty or benefit from the earth's resources. True justice requires action. It requires that we step on when we see harm, speak when we others remain silent, and make choices that honor the balance God's intent. And justice is not about addressing harm. It's about creating hope. Imagine a world where humans live in harmony with the earth. What would that look like? Maybe clean rivers, thriving forests, healthy wildlife, and communities that use resources with responsibility. Justice for God's planet means sustainable practice, reducing waste, conserving water, and protecting wildlife. It starts with individual choices. but it doesn't endures. Laws, policies, and community must also reflect his sacred responsibility. Scripture reminds us in Genesis that humanity was made to steal and keep the garden. To steal is to work responsibly, to keep is to protect. Stewardship is not optional, it is a calling. When we fail to protect the earth, we fail in our sacred duty. When we fight to restore and protect it, we act as faithful stewards of God's creation. But there's another side to this. Environmental justice is also human justice. Climate change, deforestation, and pollution hit the poor the hardest. Floods, heat waves, food scarcity, contaminated water, there are real consequences for people with fewer resources. Yeah. Caring for the earth is inseparable for caring for humanity. Protecting creation, protect life, dignity, and also futures. But there is hope. Around the world, people are answering this call. Communities reforest areas stripped bare. Activists raise awareness about climate justice. Scientific innovate ways to reduce pollution and restore ecosystems. But you know why? There's still a group of students able to walk through our street seeking for justice, wearing a black shirt that I have today and my partner have. Announce the community that there is a school standing with him, standing with her, looking for the dignity that they needed, and looking also for justice for their communities. But because change begins with us, here today, what we consume, how we travel, how we use energy, how we treat animals and plants, these choices matter. Every small act of care is a statement of justice. Every effort to reduce waste, conserve resources, or educate others moves us closer to honoring God's creation. As I conclude, I want to imagine together a world where justice for God's planet is not a goal, it's a reality. Clean river, oceans, communities living sustainable, children breathing clean air, future generations inherit an earth full of life and beauty. This is not just a dream, this is our calling for today. God has entrusted the planet to us, and justice demands that we care for it faithfully, responsibly, and lovingly. Let us remember, every action counts. Every choice matters. Every one of us has a role in defending, protecting, and restoring the earth. Justice for God's planet, justice for all creation, and it's a responsibility that we cannot ignore. And as you say, silence or neutrality in the face of injustice are not acts of peace or prudence, but forms of complicity. Those who remain silent while others suffer or are oppressed allow injustice to persist. To be just means to take a stand, even when it is uncomfortable, because staying silent ultimately means choosing the side of the one who caused harm. And I will end with a quote of Patch Adams: see what no one else sees. See what everyone chooses not to see. Out of fear, conformity, or laziness. See the whole world anew each day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. As I was listening to your sermon talk keynote address, and is it Andrea or Andrea? Andrea. I was reminded of the scripture where the men come and bust open the roof for their friend. And so many pastors preach that, and well, actually, I just said it wrong. So many pastors preach it as if it was a friend. But in all three of the synoptic gospels, it doesn't say that they were friends. It says 4 men in the Markian account. And the other 2 accounts is they brought the man before Jesus, and they bust open the roof, and they caused a scene. And so I think that scripture is important for us to realize that, especially in the Markian account, faith, Jesus said he saw their faith. And faith was not about what we believe, but in the Markian account, it was immediately this happened. Immediately they did this. It is about action. And so I think that this reminds me that we are called to take action, to do something. In the scriptures, it said Jesus saw their faith, he forgave their sins. He said they removed the roof, they took action, they dug through it, they took action, they let the man down on the mat, they took action, they did something. And sometimes what we have to do is cause a scene. Because there are people out right now in the world who don't have time for us to be all nice and complacent, and it's not nothing to do with me. They need us to cause a scene on their behalf, because there are people who are being disappeared. There are people who don't have their needs met. There are people who are hungry, right? And so we need to be causing a scene for Jesus. We cannot allow it. And so that is why I chose to be a part of the leadership team of the American Black Caucus. I am on so many different boards and things. I have a lot going on, as we all do. But I saw a need, because they are trying to erase our contributions, Black people's and people of color and people on the margins. They're trying to erase our contributions and our stories and our histories, and I am just not having it. But I believe there's something about that Sankofa bird where we're facing forward. This is the Facing Forward initiative, but our head is turned back because we're looking back to our ancestors, the history of the Black church is a place where it wasn't just about spirit. It was about spirituality. It was all about spirituality, but it was about educating us. It was about helping us discover financial freedom. And it was also about helping other people on the margins, right, seek justice and liberation. And so part of what we're doing with this initiative is to look back to our history and the things that we have in common and the struggles that we face. And I will say, the Black church is not a monolith. Let me just say that. There are so many different ways of how we approach scriptures and spirituality. Some of us are high church, some of us are, just a little calmer. You know what I'm talking about, Black people. But we have a shared history and a shared tradition. And I think what we're trying to do is look at that history and think about how we're going to move together as a people. Let me look at, I lost my notes because I was starting to preach. I'm sorry. What time? Oh, I got 4 minutes. See how this happens? Where are we? Oh, I wanted to invite the people on the leadership team, because it's not just me who are in the room, to raise their hands. Come on now, the Black Caucus leadership team. There you go. Thank you. But I think something that you said too was we have to kind of move from this kind of theoretical understanding and ideological understanding to a practical understanding. And so I think that's what we're striving to do with the Black church, is like the National Black Caucuses think about and ask the Black church around the nation, what are the needs? What are you seeing in your particular context? What are the struggles that you're facing? And how can we come together as a people of God to support one another? One of the things that I was thinking about with the sermon this morning was, how do we stand, right? Because it's hard work, it's difficult work. And so how do we build relationships of support in this good work through prayer and mentoring and reminding each other that we're not alone in this journey? But then how do we share resources and see what the gifts are that we have within us, so we can build coalitions and partner together and stand for justice and a force for change? How do we move beyond the charity models to models where we're actually organizing and we're standing together and we're pushing for change? You said this, separation of church and state means that the state can't tell us what to do, but we must influence the state. And then Another thing is how do we call the denomination to support us in the work that we're doing, and how do we build sustainable models? And so what we've been doing, we had a Juneteenth gathering where we just listened. We gathered folks together and listened to what the needs are, what the hopes are, what the issues are. And then at the biennial, we did some more of that work. And then we're going to have another session, hopefully in November, because we want to move, we want to act, but we have to build relationships. This is a huge project because we're talking about a national, I don't know if the word is coalition, but so we're really trying to just, what time is it? 2 minutes. Oh, I think I'm done early. I'm giving back some time. We just want to partner and really figure out what the needs are and move for justice and for change and education and healthcare. Like, what are the needs and how do we partner with one another? So I'm going to stop at that. And there's some materials that we can share with you all to learn more about what we're doing. Amen.
2 minutes back.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you on this panel today. Reverend Alexander, thank you so much for your talk. Your title, A Call to Action in an Unsafe World, you let us off with a question: what does it mean to love one another? And then you talked about the Good Samaritan, and you talked about this word compassion. And so the answer that I had to come up with is to love one another means to see and to do. That, in fact, is the operative definition of compassion. Compassion is more than an emotion, but it is something that you feel, not just from a place of feeling, but it makes you feel until the point that you have to do something. Defined in the Greek, it actually talks about this uncontrollable feeling deep down in your bowel, and you have to let it go. And so when you see the suffering, when you see the marginalized, when you see the least of these, you have to feel something so deep down on the inside that you can't keep it in. And so that to me is your my answer that I came up with to your question: what does it mean to love one another? And so my work, Freedom From, Freedom To, is informed and influenced by 2 books. One is called Cut Dead But Still Alive, Caring for African American Young Men, written by Gregory Ellison. And so the phrase to cut dead means to refuse to acknowledge someone, essentially to render them invisible or punish them by ignoring them. Ellison argues that many African American young men are metaphorically cut dead by society, ignored, marginalized, denied recognition or meaningful support. Because of systematic inequalities, education gaps, disproportionated by incarceration, social stigma, these young men often struggle with hopelessness or resistance to institutional help. And so when you talk about the Good Samaritan who stops and sees someone on the floor, and you put that together with Ellison's notion of invisibility, that gives me the construct for my work. My work is about making the unseen visible, okay? And so I'll give you a quick example of this as it is found in Ellison's book. My son is 13 years old. He is 5'10", and he is 160 pounds. One day in school, he was sitting down, and someone came out of nowhere and pushed him. My son said, "Leave me alone," because I teach my son not to. And then they did not listen. In fact, this was a girl that did this. They then proceeded to throw a piece of ice into my son's eye. My son already has bad vision. The school saw it, decided that the only appropriate action was to ask my son if he's okay. And he said yes, and then they sent him back to class. My practice is when I pick my son up: how was your day? Did anything happen that I need to know about? And don't keep secrets from me. He told me what happened. I called the school and I said to them, why did no one call his parents about what happened? they had no proper answer because they're not used to fathers calling up to the school asking about their sons. In fact, when I made a big deal out of it, they told me that I was overreacting. And so there are systems in place that are designed to keep our children, our black young men, our black men invisible. There's another book called Brainwashed, and I'll give you the author's name here, Tom Burrow. And it talks about how there are systems in place that are geared towards creating an image of black people. And so you couple those together, you've got images of black people that are created to make us look a certain way, and then you've got systems in place to render us invisible. And so that for me gives me the work freedom from, freedom to, and in that work it's a therapeutic process that we are engaging in for mental wellness in black men. It has 4 stages. Recognize, this is where we sit down and help people to think about some of the things that we are experiencing, both within and without. Release, this is where we spend about 4 weeks working on tools that will help them to let go, to forgive, and to give way to the possibility of healing. Then we go into reel in. Right? We're reeling in our emotions that we're not able to control. We're looking at the things that we're doing that are destructive, not only to us, but to our family. And lastly, we move into the repair stage. That's when we learn healthy practices to heal and protect our emotional, psychological, and spiritual trauma. As I do this work of visibility, I realize that it's the goal of the church to bring visibility to the invisible. I'll give you another story because I'm a preacher. We have to have stories to back up everything we say. So last night, I was getting ready to have a late dinner. Don't judge me. I was eating at about 11 o'clock at night, full meal. I was hungry. And the community had a blackout. So I didn't think I was going to be here today. Now I'm sitting down on my couch. The food is steaming. The smell of it is amazing. Complete blackout. Now, the thing about the darkness is that the darkness disorients you. It makes you lose who you are, and where you're supposed to go. And that is kind of what we're experiencing. You mentioned trauma, chaos, empire, wealth, and taking from the poor. That is a level of darkness that is put on people that disorients them. Right? And so I'm in the dark and I don't know what to do. And y'all, I live in New Jersey. I have animals that make sounds outside. And you don't always recognize what type of animal it is. And so I was afraid, I'm not gonna lie, I was afraid because sounds were being made and I could not tell what these sounds were. And so I'm disoriented because I'm in the dark. And then all of a sudden I remembered that you've got candles. So I went and I lit candles all around my house, and I felt safe because I felt seen. And that is the job of the church, and I've got 35 seconds. That to me is the job of the church, that we are meant to let our light shine in places of darkness so that people can feel seen, so that they can feel safe, and so that disorientation that happens when darkness takes over them can leave and then they can live. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear it for our panel one more time for their courage, compassion, truth-telling, faithfulness. May you continue to have conversations like this among your tables throughout the rest of the day. At this time, I'd like to invite Monique, I believe, has an announcement if you're in the room.